Welcome to Scary Basement. Each week, me and my friend Roxy are drawn inexplicably and supernaturally to this very basement, wherein lurks every scary thing that has ever been, including a carafe of blood so that it can breathe before it gets drank, a termite that eats souls instead of wood, a book full of ancient curses and filthy language, and the ghost of a sailor who died in a fire. And not at sea. I'm Mikey McCollor.
And I'm Roxy Polk.
Roxy, let's start out, as we always do, with the scariest things that happened to us this week. What went down in your life outside the scary basement that spooked you to your bones?
So I have a pair of reliable, trusty headphones I've been using for multiple years, Mikey. And actually, you have bought the exact same pair somehow.
These are good headphones.
And they're also pretty cheap, so like they're very affordable by comparison. Yeah, they're squishy. They're like DJ style, so you can take the cord out without having to take them off, and you can switch them around. They've been reliable for years, but finally they have started to flake on the ear pads and get gross, so I can't use them anymore. And I'm mourning their loss. They have died.
Oh, death is scary.
It is, especially for inanimate objects, I guess.
Going into the unknown.
And the truly scary thing, Mikey, is that it's a preview of what you're going to experience because you have the exact same headphones.
I'm looking into the future.
So
that's okay. I'll buy.
Don't get
I'll
too
buy
attached. Okay, there you go.
It'll work out okay.
What about you, Mikey? What has happened to you this week?
I'll tell you what's scaring me, Roxy. Disease.
Yeah, that's very scary. Do you want to elaborate, or just the general idea
it's just
of
a scary
disease?
Okay, here's what's going on. My right big toe has been just like kind of numb for like a week.
Okay.
So
that doesn't sound good.
Here's what's going on. I am confident.
Okay.
I am confident it is because I pulled a muscle in my back. And when Googling these symptoms, it was like, oh, have you changed anything about your physical fitness thing? And I remember...
Yeah, you can really trust Google telling you.
Well, yes.
And then it's probably like, oh yeah, you pulled it in your back because of no physical fitness, and then you're going to die and have cancer.
Well, it did even worse than that. It said it could be a pulled muscle in your back, or it could be diabetes, or it could be cancer, or it could be demonic possession. There were just like a lot of things it could be. And each one is scarier than the last.
One of those things is also not like the other. Mikey, have you run afoul of any... It's all that sugar you eat and drink, Mikey, is catching up with you.
I mean,
but also that old crone you ran over.
Right, she did rub my face and say, numb right toe.
Yeah. You gotta stop running into her. She's sick of it. Now she's just doing stuff that will mess with you by forcing you to go onto WebMD and think you have cancer, maybe. That's the real psychological warfare curse.
She also, like, hides behind my car. So, like, she's trying to get hit by me in, like, sneakier and sneakier ways.
So she has a justified reason to curse you because she just loves
cursing me.
You, I guess. You know, maybe she actually has a crush on you. It's that thing where, like, you know, you tease the person you like the most.
Oh my God.
Mikey.
Roxy?
Could it be? Mikey?
The old crone is getting on an airplane right now. I have to stop her.
You're going to be stopped at security, though, unlike the movies from the 2000s before. You had to go through security.
Well, instead of going to the airport, I'm going to stop and listen to the Demon Bot. For he has cut me off and is not allowing me out of the scary basement yet. What do you got for us, Demon Bot?
Mikey and Roxy, this week you were assigned the 2014 film The Babadook, written and directed by Jennifer Kent and starring Essie Davis, Noah Wiseman, and Daniel Hanshaw. Did you watch the film, or are your souls forfeit?
Roxy, did you watch The Babadook? I did.
Yes, I watched The Babadook.
Then you may keep your souls, for now.
Oh, he's running away. He said it.
Look at him go.
He said it kind of like a mime. He was just like, for now, and then he pedaled his way out.
I've never seen a robot do jazz hands until today. And I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed. He's a lot more articulate than I thought he was capable of.
Yeah, it turns out
maybe I should be scared.
He did have articulated fingers, but he had just been pressing them together, and they looked like hooves for so long.
Yeah, he was waiting for the reveal, and I gotta say, it had the effect he wanted to, I think.
Yeah, it was stupendous. Roxy, let's talk about the Babadook.
Yeah, all right.
For anybody who is listening up at the cellar door, here is a plot recap, starting now. We open on Amelia mid-car crash. She's being tossed all around while she watches her husband Oscar, who does not survive the crash. We'll later learn this crash took place on the way to the hospital when Amelia was about to give birth to Sam, who is now her 6-year-old son. She's brought him up all by herself.
Sam's a weird kid. He makes his own weapons and is obsessed with the Babadook, a frightening man creature from one of his storybooks with long, sharp fingers who wears a trench coat and a top hat. In the book, the Babadook promises that once you see what's underneath, you're going to wish you were dead. Amelia rips up the book and throws it in the trash.
Sam develops a case of insomnia, and Amelia develops one right along with him. Soon, Sam begins acting even weirder, eventually pushing his cousin out of a treehouse after she makes fun of him for not having a dad. This family, man. This, of course, makes Amelia's sister Claire, seemingly Amelia's sole source of support, cut ties with her.
After Sam sees the Babadook in the car and has a seizure, Amelia takes him to the doctor's where he is prescribed a powerful sedative. After just one peaceful night's sleep, Amelia wakes up to find the Mr. Babadook book reassembled and on her front porch. Only this time, it contains new pages. Pages that prophesize that Amelia will murder the family dog, Sam, and then herself.
Amelia first burns the book and then goes to the police, who can't do anything without the book. They're just like, oh, what are you doing, ma'am? Here, Amelia starts to lose it. She gets angry at Sam, cuts the phone cord with a knife, and even sees the Babadook enter her body in a hallucination. Or was it a hallucination? It was.
Amelia then hallucinates a dead Sam before going down into the basement, where an apparition of her husband demands she bring him the boy. Next, Amelia does murder the dog and tries to murder Sam, but the little weapons expert gets the better of her with a crossbow and tripwire, eventually tying her down and loving his mom so much she throws up the black slime that is the Babadook.
Unfortunately, you can't ever get rid of the Babadook, so while we end with Amelia in a much better place, she's able to throw a birthday party for Sam and talk about the car accident that killed her husband, she does still have to go down to the cellar where the Babadook lives to bring him a bowl of worms. And that, Roxy, is the Babadook.
That is the Babadook. Yep, the Babadook.
That is how they say it throughout the movie, right? Babadook. Babadook.
Yeah, but he says Duke because I think it's like the knocking noise that he makes.
Okay.
But I didn't remember them saying it that way at all until this rewatch. And I was like, oh, what? Okay.
Babadook.
Yeah, shouldn't his name be Mr. Babadook then? Instead of just Babadook?
That sounds too much like Dookie. And that's, Roxy, that's poop.
I mean, already does. Well, Babadook.
Unfortunately.
The Babadook is not a nice guy, so it wouldn't be...
That's true. He is the human embodiment of poop. Disgusting. Roxy, I think I love this movie more than any movie I've ever seen.
Because it's the most recent movie you've ever seen?
Because it's the last movie I watched.
Oh, yes. Yep. Uh-huh.
But I think this movie is so funny. I think the kid is so weird, and it's like,
oh my god,
hilarious how weird he is.
He is so awful. There are like multiple times where he kind of like looks at the camera, and I can't tell how much of it is like the kid acting too well or not acting good enough. Because he comes across as such an annoying, horrible little monster that makes you never want to have children ever in your entire life. Yeah. And if you do have children, be happy this is not your kid.
Well, I will say that is what I think is so great about this movie. And it's a story that I don't think is told very often. Like, this is kind of a story about a mom who doesn't want to be a mom. Like
or at least she wasn't prepared to be a mom on her own. Like, that was never part of her plan. And then suddenly she was forced to have to do that.
I do feel like there's this tendency to make certainly moms, but even like women in general, like it's the Madonna whore complex, right? You are either the worst, loosest, sluttiest lady, or you are history's most beautiful savior. And there's no in between. Like, this woman, Amelia, is kind of in the middle. She's just like, I kind of don't like my kid. Like, she's kind of going through this. A couple characters like call her out. You know, when her sister, Claire, tells Amelia, she's just like, I don't want to be around your son. She's like, I can't believe you said that to me. She's like, you don't want to be around him either. Like, we never see stories about this. Like, it feels like parents, especially mothers, devote their lives to their children in stories. We never get a ton of stories about, like, their interior lives, about what they're going through and how they're relating to motherhood. I love that.
Yeah, I do very much like that part of this movie. The one thing that I don't like that this movie does is that the monster isn't real in the sense that it is a literal monster. Like, the monster is, I guess, grief and holding on to that grief and not moving on. But I'm very bummed out that the Babadook isn't a real creature with his own lore when they've literally set it up for him to have his own lore with a book and everything. It feels like it did the thing where it's just like, oh, it was a dream. Or, oh yeah, it was just all on the main character's head. And I hate it when stories do that. I realize it's like a personal preference that I can't stand it when that happens, and that's the twist. Especially because then after this, she brings the worms down to the cellar, so then I'm like, I don't know what you're trying to say about it physically existing now. Is that still symbolism, and do those worms, that bowl of worms is going to be somewhere else, or are you actually even bringing it down there? Like, do we think the bowl of worms is real? Yes. Well, that's interesting you say that. I think the Babadook is real. He's a creature, like a monster? Yeah. I thought it was just a symbolism of grief the entire time by the time we got to the end of it.
I mean, it definitely is. And
because she like has basically a psychotic break, having to deal with all of the pressure and everything she's been dealing with up until that point. And I thought they were just kind of being like, well, this is sort of symbolically what she's going through. It's like, is the word hyper reality? Like, the world of the movie is sort of like hyper reality, right? Where it's like not really all taking place in reality. It's more of the character's mind. So then you sort of can't trust what you're seeing. Like, how much of this is real, we don't know, and we'll never know.
Yeah, I didn't get that sense from it.
Okay, yeah. What was your...
I thought it was that the Babadook was a real monster man. And it was like, oh, and to me it was like, oh, he's the dad. The Babadook is the dad. And we do get that, like, visually, like, literal. Yeah,
there's a couple. Like, at least 2 different points with, like, his clothes, and then...
Yeah.
The scene at the end where... Or not the end. Like, close to the end where she literally talks to an apparition of her husband.
Who demands her son.
Yeah, and then I think again... He says... He again is like, give me the boy. But then she refuses and yells back, and then it, like, chops his head off, kind of.
Oh, boy, does he.
Yeah, several times it shows up as the dad.
Yeah,
But I assume that was like the symbolism of her grief going through, like, not being able to let go of him and blaming her son for his death. She even says at one point, like, do you have any idea how many times I wish it was you instead of him?
This movie is like...
So I assumed part of it was
First of all, I think this is like the prototype for the kind of movies we have ended up watching for this time that we spend down here in the basement, right? This to me is like... I feel like it kind of kicked off the trend that Scream 5 sort of poked at, where it's like, movies now, horror movies aren't just about like cool kills anymore. They're about grief. They're all about grief and trauma. And they are. And this movie, I think kind of what you're pointing out is that this movie is not super subtle about it. It is like a symbolism that is just like pointing at you the whole time to be like, it's about grief. You get it? Do you get that it's about grief? And we do. We do get it. But yeah, to me, and this is just my interpretation, I don't know if it, like, because you're right, it does read a little dreamlike throughout.
So many times. Like, I think the opening scene where she's in the car crash and then she's falling into her bed, they do that like 2 different times, and it's like she's floating through the air. The way she's like kind of moving her arms is like kind of dramatic, and like, obviously that's not a space or like an action that could exist in reality. So... I assumed it is in her dream, kind of like us falling into her dream world with her, where everything is kind of like not exactly as it seems, I suppose.
But yeah, I definitely read it as like the Babadook is real. He's a creature, and his power is possession, and he possesses the mom. And then the little boy ties her up and does so much love that she fights it off. And it, like, cause like seeing her like vomit up black juice, I was like, oh yeah, she has won. And that's the way they like do it visually. But it is like, I think that could be the Babadook's power.
I guess
That's
it's
what he
just with
does.
that too. Like, I can't trust that any of it is supposed to be happening. It could all just be like metaphor, I guess. And I think that's the thing that I don't like about this movie.
Yeah.
I think it does a lot of things that I find interesting, but that part of it just kind of like kills the interest I have for this movie. So I don't know. I don't really know what to say about
Babadook.
I mean,
That's homophobic.
I don't.
It's not.
So actually, I forgot. I wanted to look up like how the evolution of Babadook himself becoming a gay icon, because that is my favorite part about the Babadook.
Yeah, I actually don't know how that happened, but I do like it.
I remember just like being at conventions and people literally made like gay pride Babadook merch, and I was like, yes, more of this, even though I don't know how it started. I love it.
He's so cool, the Babadook. I love this movie with my whole heart. Because it's the thing that it's about is so clear, and I almost felt like, last week we watched The Exorcist, and that was a struggle for me to like, I don't know what this movie is saying, and I was like doing a lot of work to try and, mental work to try and figure it out.
Yeah.
The Babadook, it's like you kick your feet up, you get a cute little story about grief with a weird kid, and then you go on your way.
Cute? I don't know. I'd say cute, but yeah.
I think that kid is very cute.
Until he like screams.
I'm like enamored by everything he does. Screaming is funny.
He's very expressive. He has like a giant mouth and he has giant eyes.
Yeah, he
so
does.
like whenever he's doing anything, especially when he's just like screaming, even though sometimes, see, that's the thing where I don't know if this is a good kid actor or bad kid actor, because he's acting more like natural in a bad kid way, which is still like, we talked about this a bit with Chucky, with the main kid actor in Chucky, how it's kind of like, he feels naturalistic because he's sort of, he's still just like 6 years old. So you're not going to be that great an actor when you're 6 years old, no matter what.
Yeah.
But he feels naturalistic in that sense because he is still like playing the role.
I will say there is the casting director of the show This Is Us somehow finds these child actors. Like, they had a 3-year-old in a scene on This Is Us, and it was just like, he was objectively the best actor in the episode. It was just incredible, the things they're able to do
That's
with
impressive.
child actors. But go on. Sorry.
Yeah, actually, so I did see like a little featurette thing with the director talking about like how she made this movie and also her other movie, The Nightingale, which I have not seen. And how there's like the part where the mom is like, she's kind of posed like the Babadook when she's been possessed. And she like glides across the floor towards her son and says like these horrible things to him.
Yeah.
And the director is like, we couldn't actually have her yelling at the child like that because that would be considered child abuse. So instead, we just had her yelling to like an actor who was just like kind of crouched down so she could get into it. And then for the kid's reaction shot that we turned around, like he knew he was acting, we'd be like, okay, so we need to get you into the mindset. So imagine I took your favorite Legos and then scream at me like you hate that. Because he's like obsessed with Legos apparently. So like that's how the director got him to like give that reaction.
So
shot.
cute. Aw,
Which
he loves
is very
Legos.
funny to think about. So I'm sure you have to do other tricks like that, like you were talking about with this 3-year-old actor kid. Like you have to find different ways to get the things you want out of child actors, which can't be easy.
I can't imagine. I don't like being around children in general, but getting them to do what they need to do, no. I would argue that this kid's performance is pretty successthat's because I don't think you're supposed to like him. I think that we are in order to connect with Amelia's story, like that's what she's going through. She's like, I got this kid and I don't much care for him.
Yeah, I think also because they make that shift, like the writing, the cinematography, everything does a very good job at showing you like how annoying, oppressive, and draining everything in her life is, and the main source of it is that kid. Like if that kid wasn't there draining the life out of her practically, for real, like her job at the nursing home wouldn't feel as like claustrophobic, and like her sister wouldn't be like ostracizing and pitying her with like her sharply dressed fembot friends who were like at the party in that one scene. And like she wouldn't be feeling like the grief and loss of her husband having like a physical manifestation to blame or remind her of, especially because like he was born the same day he died. Like, how do you even deal with something
it's very funny when like tragedy stacks on top of other tragedies like that.
We talked a bit about it in Hereditary, how, like, when she goes to that meeting, talking about all the things that happen in her family history, and it's just this nightmare laundry list that everybody there is just doesn't even know what to say afterwards. They just kind of stare and are like, that sucks.
Too bad, man.
What do you say? And then they kind of switch it.
They also did it this week on This Is Us, where a character was like, yeah, I was married before. I had a wife. She was blind. And also, we couldn't have kids. She was sterile. And then finally, she said, I'm leaving you. And she left. And then she got hit by a car. Like, yeah! Very tragic.
It's like, what's the most tragic thing you can think of? Okay, write it real quick to, like, get an emotional reaction out of people. It feels so cheap.
And she had a little
baby I don't think it was cheap in this
backpack.
movie, but yeah, there you go. And she was one day away from retirement also. And she was gonna get that prize. She was gonna get an award. And then they were award the very next day.
I'm too old for this shit.
But
being alive.
Yeah. So they kind of like switch the narrative where you're following Amelia as like the main character, and then it feels more like you're following the kid, where he is like literally home aloning his own mother by setting up traps and making contraptions and like doing all this stuff to like literally fight his own mother. That was, which is absolutely insane. That
was my favorite part of the movie, is they pull off this interesting little trick where early in the movie they set it up like we're gonna protect each other. And when the mom is possessed by the Babadook, the little boy becomes the parent. It's like really nice. It's like this really sweet moment where he's like, okay, I understand what I need to do.
Or it's more like he's honoring the promise they made, I guess. I don't know if I go so far as to say he's the parent, but he's just like, I'm going to stick to this. Like, even with my kid logic and everything, like, I love my mom and I promised my mom I'd do this thing, so I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah.
Even though, like, so many times when he said he would do other things or she asked him to do other things, he wouldn't do it. So it's like, I guess this is where he draws the line.
Yeah.
Which, lucky for Amelia, that is what he did, because he ends up exercising the Babadook, metaphorically, literally, either way.
Emotionally.
Yeah.
There is something like, this kind of story will always hit for me. We should not suppress our feelings. We should get our feelings out there. And it can be the simplest, most childish version of that. And I don't think this movie is necessarily childish, but like we've said a bunch, we get it. We get the themes. They are very clear.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm just like enwrapped. I'm like, yeah, you're right. We should be emotionally suppressive. Or we should stop suppressing our emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, because you gain nothing from it other than just like hurting yourself at that point. Because like her sister says the husband died like 6 years ago, or 7, because he's turning 7. He is 6, he's turning 7. So it's like, it was 7 years ago. And she's like, I am over it. I keep telling her, like, I don't talk about him.
I don't talk about him.
Like, I don't talk about him doesn't mean you're over it, girl, but that's what she thinks it means. She's like, yeah, if I just keep ignoring it and not confronting it and, like, doing what I'm supposed to do, which is working, being a mother, trying to be, like, a sister to you. She's on autopilot. She's not really, like, confronting and dealing with her life.
Yeah.
And apparently she's been able to do that for, like, 7 years somehow, and then snaps, which if I was in her position, I wouldn't have lasted 7 years doing that shit. I would have snapped way, way quicker.
But that's what's so powerful to me about this, like, the vomit scene. All of those feelings are finally being expunged. Like, it's just such catharsis. Like, it's, like, the ending works for me so well because you can just like see this relief on her face almost. She's just like so content. She's just like, yeah, my husband, he had himself a little bit of a death. And and we're dealing with it the best we can.
Her son being such a weird little kid and how he said something really weird to Child Protective Service agents who were there when she's talking to him at the end, like for the birthday party. And she's just like, oh yeah, my husband always spoke his mind too. Like, he takes after him.
Yeah.
So being able to realize that, like, yeah, he is like that, but there's a reason why he's like that. And you shouldn't be, like, trying to squash his uniqueness. You should be able to accept it. And make sure it doesn't smash your windows in the process too, of course. But, try to embrace that, accept it, and let him be his own person, I guess. And she's finally, like, kind of learned to do that. Like, accepting he is his own person. And yeah, he's going to take something from both of us. And he's not just like a burden that I have to deal with because I'm supposed to, because that's what mothers are supposed to do.
Oh, that last scene where he like performs magic is so lovely. Like the movie had kind of threaded this little bit of like this kid being obsessed with magic and doing tricks.
Yeah.
And at the end, when she's kind of like brushing him off and ignoring him, and she's like, I'm trying to focus on your fucking behavior problems.
Mm-hmm.
The ending of this movie is she sits down and pays attention to him, and he does literal magic. Like, it made me so emotional. He's like...
Yeah, and it's at his birthday party, the first birthday party he's ever had by himself. That wasn't a joint birthday party with his cousin. There's nobody else there. It's just the two of them. Because he doesn't have any friends. And, like, she's not going to invite the cousin who he pushed out of the treehouse for obvious reasons. But so it's just to, like, let him have a birthday party for himself and let him do magic for me. Because that's what he wants to do.
Yeah. And it just feels like the trick he does, he like makes a dove appear out of his hands. Like, it's kind of insane. And
yeah, that's another like of the hyper reality. Right. Like, that probably didn't happen, but but symbolically in her heart, that's seeing much as he did.
The true extent of what your kid can do now that you're finally able to like see him as himself, and instead of like this reflection of your grief and sorrow. That's so lovely. Even this like idea of the Babadook still like living in the basement, grief never leaves us. It's better some days. Yeah. And it comes and goes. I don't know. I just like, I love the way this movie talks about it. Yeah. And grief eats worms.
If they just didn't do the worms part, it's just like, okay, so is he a physical presence, or you're just like dumping buckets of worms in your basement? Is that what's happening? Or were the worms even real at all? And that part's just symbolism. But yes, I think I do love the concept of being it like, yeah, grief doesn't leave you. You just learn how to deal with it and manage it and like put it in your life in a perspective that is healthier for you.
Yeah. Oh, it's lovely.
Because, yeah.
I will say also the line that I think really worked for me in the Babadook book is it says, once you see what's underneath, you're going to wish you were dead. What's underneath, his trench coat or whatever. And just thinking about this poor woman who has like, that was the moment when I was like, oh, it's the dad. Her husband is the Babadook. Because once you see what's underneath this grief, it's this man that you love. It's like, of course she would wish she was dead. She wishes she was there with him. And that's why like suicide as this threat that she was going to become a family annihilator, is really intense. Really like, it's so upsetting because you can kind of track how she got there. Like, this is what her illness is doing to her. And it feels like it's on the table throughout. Like, I remember the very first time watching this movie, like, being so unsettled because it's like, yeah, she might not beat this. It never felt like, I don't know, we're pretty good at, like, watching horror movies now and can kind of tell, like, oh, yeah, Neve Campbell's probably not going to die in Scream. Like, we know she's going to make it out. Like, I never got any sense of security from this movie. I thought anything was on the table, and I was real upset about it.
Yeah, I think having that hanging over your head is quite effective. That this movie uses it to its advantage. I think especially because, like, was this the director's first kind of breakout movie? I'm sure she's been directing plenty of stuff before this, but this was the first thing by her that I had seen.
I really, just hearing you talk about The Nightingale, I was like, oh, of course this director has made other movies, and I'm sure I'm going to love them also. Jennifer Kent.
So it's kind of like you don't know what to expect from movies by this director to like use that as a context clue. Like, for instance, if you're watching a Shyamalan movie, now you know that something's going to happen where you're like, you have an expectation going into it. Yeah. So especially also this is an Australian movie with Australian actors. I assume the director is also Australian, but I don't actually know. I think she is.
No one will ever know.
No, it's a mystery.
It's the kind of fact that we can't uncover.
Yeah, I think it definitely, like, going into it, you don't know what to expect from it. Especially because, like, I remember when this first came out, it was very talked about and everything, too. So you're like, oh, are people talking about, like, this being a huge new thing because, like, literally nobody's going to make it out of this? Is that why? Which definitely adds to the creep factor.
Boy, does it. Oh, I'm so excited to watch The Nightingale now.
I've heard it's what's the word I'm looking for?
Bad?
No, not bad. It's just a lot. Some people walked out for not because it's bad. Intense. That was the word I was looking for. I've heard people say it's very intense.
Yeah, for the Babadook,
it will not be delightful like the Babadook is what I will say.
The Babadook is very silly and fun. Like, I think this is a very fun movie. Just like all of the bizarre little choices that like the kid makes, and I think they play it for comedy a lot. Like the scene where she like shouts at him like, "Why can't you just be normal?" and he just screams at her is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my whole life.
That's like a nightmare. I'm just like, I never want children. It's so terrifying. He's so horrible. Oh. And then he like has this seizure or something after that, doesn't he? And then they go to the hospital and it's like, okay.
What's wrong with him?
He's screaming. The face when he's screaming, it's both funny and just like the worst thing you've ever seen at the same time. It's like, I don't know how they do it. They just do it.
I like the idea that his medical diagnosis is this child is full of grief.
This kid just wants to make Home Alone contraptions. I prescribe him making 2 catapults.
He's good at it.
1 tripwire.
He's good at it too. He's got good traps. Traps are hard.
They are. Kevin McCallister could learn from him. That's like something I did not remember from like having watched it the first time. I was like, there's literally a Home Alone scene. Multiple Home Alone scenes in this movie. Like the kid just becomes Kevin McCallister, but in a horror movie.
Yeah, it's pretty tight. It's a tight movie. Roxy, do you have a question for me?
Yes, I do. So, Mikey, my question to you is, what was a scary piece of media you saw as a child? Something that really stuck with you, a childhood horror, if you will.
For whatever reason, the McDonald's mascot, the Moon Man, scared me so much. Do you remember him? Do you remember what he looks like?
Yeah. He's like...
He has a giant
or something.
Head. He has a giant head that is a crescent moon, and he wears sunglasses and smiles, and then he has like a human-sized body. Yeah, and he's wearing a suit.
Yeah. And like the head is so disproportionately gigantic. I think he plays like jazz or something.
Yeah, he's like playing Mac the Knife, except he calls it Mac Tonight.
Wait. Oh, Mac Tonight. Wait, Mac the Knife?
Yeah, it's like this old like jazz number.
Oh, okay. That's terrifying that he has the word knife in his name.
But then he changed it to like, it's Mac Tonight, like McDonald's Tonight. Dude, it is...
I remember seeing that guy. He was on like a cup that I think we had.
It's so scary. I pulled it up on YouTube right now, and I'm literally like tensing up. Like, I don't know what it is about this. I remember as a child screaming when Moon Man commercials would come on.
Oh no.
Hiding behind my mother. This is fucking scary. Oh, God.
You should send it to me. Can you send it to me? Is there audio that we can give our listeners here? Or...
Boy, is there. God damn. I hate it, Roxy. I just saw the little thumbnail popped up in our Discord chat. I saw him again.
Yeah,
the thumbnail. Fuck you.
It's a 30-second commercial.
I just remember being a little boy in my room, lying in my bed, looking out the window, thinking like, what if he just comes? What if he just
I mean, it is nighttime, right? He's like literally the moon.
He's like kind of flying, so he can, I guess, travel wherever he needs to go.
It's so funny because this commercial is like not scary at all, but like I can understand how like the design and the fact that it's like a guy in a suit.
Ugh,
yeah, like Mac Tonight. Yeah.
All right. What is your childhood fear, Roxy, that much like the Babadook got in your head and freaked you out?
Okay, so what do you know about the TV show Ghost Rider, Mikey?
Oh, nothing at all.
Nothing at all? Okay, so it was the show about like a group of kids who had like this character called Ghost Rider who would like help them solve mysteries.
Okay.
But there was a 2-part episode called Attack of the Slime Monster.
Okay.
That had this horrible thing. Here, I'm going to send you, and we will have it in the show notes, but also if you just type in Ghost Rider Slime Monster, you will see it for yourself. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, no.
It was this horrifying creature.
Oh, no. This is upsetting.
That was actually designed by, God, I can't remember his name. If I had like
Mikey
written
McCollor.
this up.
That's right. Yes, it was me who made this little creep.
But so the guy who designed this, he worked on like a bunch of horror movies. So he's like a legendary horror monster designer guy. And I don't know why. I hope that Ghostwriter paid him a lot for this because this thing was absolutely horrifying. It's like this melting ooze monster with like bugged out eyes.
Yeah. It looks kind of
and
like...
he's got these horrible teeth and he like barfs more of the purple goop everywhere. And he's like in a suit, kind of like an outfit.
Ugh.
Like, I think he's like human sized, I believe. Here, let me look at this again. Yeah, he's human. He's kind of like human sized, like small human size, kind of like he's like a Chucky doll size at one point and then like a real person size at one point.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm looking at him. He's got like a man body sometimes.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrifying. And
this is very scary. And this was just on television? They were just allowed to put this was on horrible creature?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was even like normal TV. And it's in a kid show. And he's haunting.
I don't like
It's like in 95, I think. I can't remember if I saw it in 95, probably a little bit later on like reruns or something. So like, I don't even know. You know, when I saw this as a kid, I don't even know if I saw like both parts together. I think I only saw like one episode of this. So I either didn't get closure or I was seeing the end part of like when he like caused even more damage. So either way, it's not good. Would not recommend Ghostwriter Ooze Monster when you are a tiny child.
Yeah, this needs to, like, listen, I'm a peaceful man. If I saw this thing in real life, I would kill him. I would have to kill him.
As you should. As you should. He's going to try and ooze you. I think he also, like, got rid of the cast members. I think they all came back in the end. But I think he, like, deleted them or, like, absorbed them or something. So,
deleted them?
I can't quite remember how it worked out. I need to rewatch it. I think I was too terrified to try and...
I get it. Yeah, Roxy,
remember it, relive it.
You haven't watched TV since you saw this episode.
Yeah, just never again. Not since 1995. Never seen a TV show.
Now, Roxy, if I saw this thing in real life, I would kill it, as we well know. And speaking
as you should.
Things in real life, on a scale from 1 to 9, with 10 not being on the scale because it doesn't exist in the scary basement, who knows what happened to it? How likely would you say the events of the Babadook are to happen in real life?
So I said 9 out of 9 that somebody will like have grief so bad that they will break from it and either get over it or not. You know, that stuff happens every day, unfortunately. So what about you, Mikey?
Also said 9. This is the first ever confident 9 I've given.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Just because
all
like
those other 9s, just you didn't believe in it.
This is all one big metaphor. This is all one big metaphor for a thing that absolutely happens. Family annihilators, unfortunately, are real. It happened to a professional wrestler. Suicide, obviously real. Being overwhelmed by grief, obviously real. Worms, real. All these things are real.
Mm-hmm. Babadook, real.
This is a documentary.
Yes.
About the old Babadook.
They don't tell you that at the beginning, but it's in the notes.
Yeah,
right?
I was really
stay till the end of the credits, and then they'll say it.
I was disquieted when it came up based on true events, and I said, "Excuse me." Roxy, last week we made a bet over the number of times the word Babadook would be said aloud. I said 4.
Yes, and I said 9.
The answer, according to the PDF of the script and my control effing through the word Babadook, and only counting times it appears in dialogue, not in scene directions, or stage directions, rather. Roxy, they say it 17 times.
17 times, okay.
There's a lot of Bobs in this Duke.
Yeah, because the kid, like, gets really obsessed with him and he keeps screaming about him, and then she's like, no Babadooks anymore.
You are done saying Babadook, young man.
And the sister is like, he kept talking about the Babadook. Okay, yeah. Yeah, they do say it a lot of times. All right, I guess I am just...
It is very funny for an adult woman to just be like, this fucking kid won't stop talking about the Babadook. Just got Babadook on the brain. So you're going to take that point, which puts our score 1 tie, 18 to 18. Something will happen at 30.
Back to the tie again, though. I did it.
Yep.
This week. All right.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks. I'm proud of me, too.
Good. Here's someone I'm not proud of, though. The Demon Bot. Clomping over to tell us information.
Doing the jazz hands, too. I think he's delighted that he's learned this new ability. Good for him.
Mikey and Roxy, you have successfully reviewed the Babadook. Your souls are safe for another week. For next week, you must review the 1999 film The Blair Witch Project, directed by Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez and starring Heather Donahue, Michael C. Williams, and Joshua Leonard. If you do not, I will make you stand in the corner in the basement as I claim your bodies as my own.
Ooh. Are you excited to watch The Blair Witch Project, Roxy?
I am. I haven't watched this since it originally came out on VHS, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, damn.
It was a very spooky viewing experience.
I think this might have been the last VHS I ever purchased, because I also owned it on VHS.
Oh, okay.
And The Sixth Sense,
nice.
which came out just a couple months afterwards, I remember being one of my first DVDs.
Really? Okay, so it was right on the cusp.
Yeah.
I think it was 1990. I shouldn't be saying this. I don't know. We'll figure it out when DemonBot tells us in post.
And again, it's impossible to know. It's impossible to know this information. So let's make a bet about this Blair Witch Project.
Yes, let's make a bet. Okay, so one of the things I do vaguely in my child brain remember was that there is a scene with some stick people, and maybe multiple scenes, where the Blair Witch has created some stick figures out of twigs. They're very spooky. So how about we guess how many stick people are in the entire movie?
Great. Okay, I will say 12 stick people.
Okay, I am going to swing big and say 25.
Jesus Christ.
It's a whole lot of stick people.
People are waist high and stick people wading through. It's like when you wake up and your basement's flooded. And it's like, honey, stick figures.
We got stick people. We got stick people everywhere.
I am very excited to watch
call
this
the
movie.
plumber.
The pact has been sealed. I mean, the bet is confirmed. Whoever is closest to the number of stick people in the film shall be declared the winner. The winner will receive an all-expenses-paid getaway in the luxurious Ruston Park Cabin Resort.
Now, Roxy, remember, the Blair Witch Project is not real. It
Are
seems
you sure?
very
I saw
real.
that documentary.
It looks like a documentary. It's shot like a documentary. But I don't want you to get
They marketed it
too
as a
scared.
documentary, and I think it was on MySpace or something. They had social media that the actors died. They were as the characters.
That rules.
So good, I can't wait.
Although I will say the Blair Witch is real because she is currently skulking about here in the scary basement.
Yeah, I'm really. She keeps telling us to look into corners, and me and Mike are there's no corners. There's just everywhere. It just goes on forever down here. So even if I did want to do what you're saying, which I don't want to do, by the way, Miss Blair Witch, Lady Blair Witch, whatever you go by, we couldn't physically couldn't.
Yeah,
so
she's
always complaining about it.
I knew right away from day one in the scary basement, I'm not going to look in any corners. I'm going to avoid them.
One thing we don't have to worry about.
Roxy, we've been talking about a lot of scary things, right?
Oh boy,
Babadooks,
have we?
grief, black slime, etc. Let's talk about something that's making us happy. We had a lot of different slimes covered this week. I say we wrap it up by talking about something that's making us happy. What's going good in your life? What's bringing you joy?
So something that's bringing me joy is the it's a very small thing. It's free food, Mikey.
I love food.
My roommate occasionally gets free food from his job, and so it's really nice to have a free little snack that is generally a peanut butter and jelly sandwich puck.
Okay. What?
These things called Uncrustables. Here's some great ASMR for you guys. I'm showing Mikey.
Oh, I do love an Uncrustable.
These things. Yeah. Sponsored by Uncrustables.
I'm so fucking sick of crusts.
Well, hey, get one of these and you never have to eat
Such
crust.
bullshit that they still make crust on bread.
But so it's nice. I get to get a fun little snack for free, which brings me back to one of the biggest pieces of advice I got from a college professor. He told us never turn down free food. If you can get free food, you should eat it. Which, of course, is when you're a college student and you don't have any money. So that was when he meant to say it with the most amount of weight, I'm sure. But that has continued with me even as an adult, except for if you were in a magical world, then never eat the food.
Right.
But other than that, free food, if you're being given it, yes.
Please do. Please eat it.
But what about you, Mikey? What is making you happy this week?
Mine is also a food thing. And it's just, in general, cooking. I've been cooking lately.
Oh, well, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I've been making myself, I'll go to the grocery store and I'll buy enough food for 2 meals. So I'll cook myself, a little chicken breast, a little mashed potatoes, a little asparagus, and I'll cut it in half, and I'll have half for dinner, and I'll put the rest in a little Tupperware, bring it with me to work the next day. Oh, man.
That's perfect. Look at you. You're being a responsible adult. And planning ahead.
As I'm walking home, I'll stop on the grocery store and I'll get dinner for that night.
That's wonderful.
How good.
Do you live close by to a grocery store, so it's really easy? Or?
I do. Yeah, I've been walking to the coffee shop, which is what I call going to work, where I write at. But yeah, I'll walk there. I'll sit down. I'll open my little laptop. I'll do my ticky typing. I'll type it up. I'll work hard. My grandfather was a laborer. He would be ashamed of me.
Hey, you're laboring. You're just over a keyboard.
I go to work. I tickety type my little jokes. And then I walk back home. But on the way home, I can swing by either a Target or a Food 4 Less, the numerical 4. And I'll buy a little meat, a little side, a little veggie. Cook it up.
That's delightful and sounds so healthy, Mikey. Look at you.
Yeah, I'm a good person.
I need to get on your wavelength. That sounds like a really cool, good, responsible, cost-effective thing to do.
It's been fun. I like it. Roxy,
have you learned to cook new things?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine.
I just put salt and pepper on meat, and that's it.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, salt and pepper goes on meat. That's just the secret to cooking. It's easy.
You heard it here.
You heard it here. We just spoiled cooking for everybody. It's just salt on meat.
Big spoilers.
Roxy, each week the demon bot hires a new monster to guard the basement door and keep us from escaping. And yet each week we still escape. This week I brought along a gun.
Oh, okay. So you have brought a shotgun before. Which gun is this? I can't see.
It's just a little pistol gun.
Okay. So what are you going to do with that pistol gun?
I'm going to shoot whatever monster is out there.
Oh, okay. It's not like you set up some sort of contraption where it's like you knock down a thing and then it dominoes around. What is the name for that?
Oh, a Rube Goldberg machine?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I definitely think I have a tendency to overthink my methods of killing the guardsmen.
Okay, yes, just straight up a gun.
Now I was just like, I'm just going to go buy a gun. So let's go see what's out there. I'll open the trap door.
Okay.
Oh, boy. Roxy. It's the legendary all-beast Cthulhu.
Oh, okay.
He is massive and everything.
Well, I have a feeling he won't even notice that you shoot him, let alone let it do any damage. There's got to be... No, Mikey, stop. No, we can try and find a rune down here or some sort of statue.
All right.
Oh, Mikey!
Got him. He's dead.
Got him how?
He's dead.
Yeah, I don't believe you.
He died.
Are you sure he's not just making you see what he wants you to see?
No,
he can, make you hallucinate.
That's his corpse.
I don't know if... Okay, I'm going to peek out here. I don't know. Wait, Mikey, this isn't Cthulhu. This is a squid. It's a squid beast.
Oh.
I mean, I can see how you got confused, but one of them is a gigantic cosmic horror.
I always do this.
The other one is a small little sad squid with a little knife.
Yeah, I should have known it wasn't Cthulhu when he was very small.
I mean, that's good for us so we can actually leave alive this week, but you have to live with the consequences of your actions, Mikey.
Oh, God, I did kill a little squid, huh?
Yeah. Well, see you next week.
Bye!